What's up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another Big Men on Campus podcast. I'm your host, the Big Men on Campus, here on a Saturday night, August 11th, 2018. We're about 2 weeks away from the college football season getting going, and I know I'm excited. I know everybody's excited. Preseason football's on. We got preseason news conferences in college football. The teams are coming together, getting ready to go. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to take a look at college football. We're going to go through my preview. I'm going to bring on a guest that knows a lot about football that I'm excited to talk to. We got a lot to do. We'll have the chat open if you have any questions for us, and we'll try to take you through a lot of these conferences as we head in to college football. If you're in the chat, you're in, listening to the show, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, like, and comment if you haven't. After the show, let me know what you like. We are being sponsored by the great folks at FanDuel, FanDuel.com/BMOC. That's my dedicated page. Go there, deposit, become a customer. They're going to give you $20 quickly right away for signing up. So make sure you check out FanDuel.com if you're looking to get involved into the fantasy world as football approaches. Let me bring in my guest. He's a good friend of mine on Twitter. He's a guy that knows a ton about football. His name is Brinks, Mamba Brinks. How are you, pal?
Jeff, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Brinks, you're a guy that I've been doing some college football stuff with your own videos and on audio and stuff. I know you're a big football guy. You're getting ready for the season. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and, put your Twitter out there, and we'll do that at the end of the show also.
Yeah, sure. Well, Twitter is at @thereal_HBC. Basically, live in New York. Been doing this stuff for really a long time. Probably think back to when I first got into gambling. Probably as young as like 5th or 6th grade. I remember I asked my baseball coach how to figure out the baseball lines between 5.5 and 6.5, and that was like my introduction. But yeah, I've been doing it for a long time, and thankfully very successful. So.
Yeah, you've been doing a nice job for a long time, and you are a great football mind. I know you do other sports as well. I'm looking forward to going through some college football here. Like I said, guys, we'll go through a lot of the big conferences, talk about futures, talk about win totals, talk about all sorts of stuff. But before we get into that, Brinks, I know you are involved in the NFL preseason. You have a play late night you want to talk about. Why don't you throw that out to the listeners?
Yeah, real quick. I got down on the Cardinals last night, Arizona. They're playing San Diego tonight. I laid 2.5. It's up to 3. I would still lay it. Feel comfortable with Arizona. I like the quarterback combo they're playing there. They got a legit competition. Although Rosen's likely to start the season on the bench, but. And these young quarterbacks have actually showed out pretty well in the opening week. So the Chargers were terrible last year in preseason. So I'm going to spot the small points and take Arizona.
Arizona at home tonight, 10 o'clock. Brinks likes Arizona minus the 2.5 or the 3 against the LA Chargers. So if you want to dip your nose into a little preseason football, there you go. One of the better guys in the business as far as preseason is concerned. Brinks, let's get into the college football here. We'll start out with the ACC. Look, I think we're all well aware. I don't think this is going to take a lot of time. This is Clemson's world. We're all just living in it. Clemson is the obvious favorite here. You look at this team really up and down. You look at defensively with the guys up front. I mean, they might have the best defensive line I've ever seen at this level. The quarterbacks, you have not one but 2 really good quarterbacks, one of which in Trevor Lawrence that we haven't even seen yet, but all indications are he's very good, and he could even take over that top spot. You look at to win this conference, Clemson laying about 225, Florida State, Miami, Louisville, Va-Tech kind of to follow. I think it's really, look, we know Clemson's good. We know they're the best of the best. We know they're a favorite to win the entire thing. But you look at the rest of this conference. You look at a team like Miami, who had a good year last year, but kind of was without that, Malik Rozier playing at a high level. And I think he hurt them a little bit. They had some injuries as well to Mark Walton, to Mon Richards. They have a really good defense. You look at this schedule for Miami, not bad. Do you see Miami as the top competitor to Clemson? And do you think they can maybe overtake the Tigers?
Well, I'll tell you, Jeff, last year I was on Miami from the start of the year, at 80-1. I love them. I thought they were going to have a huge year last year, and obviously, they showed out that they had a great year. Obviously they lost the last game of the year to Pitt, and then they lost the bowl game to Wisconsin. But as far as this year, listen, I think Miami's got to be the top competitor to Clemson. But with that being said, that they're still far below where Clemson is right now. Like you said, Clemson is basically an NFL defense there. It's insane the amount of talent they have there, and they got plenty of talent on offense too. So they're the clear favorite in this conference. It would have to take some sort of remarkable upset for them not to win the conference.
Yeah, I mean, you hate to be, kind of basic, but I mean, it's that simple. I mean, they're laying a big number for a reason. They're one of the best teams in the country. I think they can win the entire thing, and I think they will win the entire thing. I think they have the best overall team in America, and I think Dabo's year this year will finally be. I know they won a few years ago, but you want to get a little revenge back after last year. Alabama kind of owned them in that game. I think a team like Florida State, you definitely want to look out for. I think they have a really good football team coming back. Obviously, the quarterback situation will be improved. Get Francois back. I think you have two of the best running backs in the country in Akers and Patrick. You have a good receiving core. Their defense is pretty good themselves. You just have to ask yourself, is Willie Taggart ready to handle that big-time program? And they have a kind of a tough schedule. You got to go to Miami. You got to go to NC State. You got to go to Notre Dame. They have a pretty tough schedule as well. But it's really just, like I said, Clemson's world. And we kind of just have to deal with that. I'll tell you one team, Brinks, that I kind of am looking at. I think they could win a lot of games this year, and I think they can be a point spread kind of interesting, kind of an interesting team. They avoid playing Clemson and Florida State. That's the Pittsburgh Panthers. I think they, under Pat Narduzzi, this might be his best football team. They have a pretty solid quarterback, a new quarterback in Kenny Pickett, sophomore. They have a nice group of running backs in Ellison and Hall. Defensively, supposedly according to Narduzzi, Randy Bates is a real good defense here. He comes over from Northwestern, gives them a little more tenacity and toughness on that side of the ball. This is a team last year that was pretty good against the run. They just need to improve against the pass. They bring back some good players in that area as well. They have some new recruits. I like Pittsburgh. I think they could be a little bit of a thorn in team sides. They seem to be every year. You remember last year, they beat Miami. Year before, they beat Clemson University. This is a team that I think you got to start looking out for. Anything on Pitt, Brinks?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring them up because I've looked at them a lot. They have that new quarterback, Pickett. He was a pretty highly recruited. That's the kid from USC, right? Transfer.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was obviously a big recruit that went to USC. Didn't pan out. Pitt went that route last year with Max Brown, and he wasn't really good for them. He was another USC transfer. The big problem for Pitt last year was, they couldn't stop 11. They couldn't stop a team of 5-year-olds last year. The defense was an absolute disaster. With that being said, I love teams that finish the year strong. And as I just mentioned, they beat Miami in that last game of the year. For a team, they had nothing. They couldn't even make a bowl by winning that game. I like that they had positive momentum to end that season. But I agree with you. They could be a little bit better than what people expect. The team I like this year in the ACC, along the lines of Pitt, is Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, we're in this era where every team makes a bowl, or any decent team. They got to be the best team that I've seen in this era when everyone goes to a bowl that did not make a bowl last year. They had some tough breaks, some close losses. I think Georgia Tech is a good team to look out for coming into this year.
Yeah, they had 3 games that were decided by 4 points or less. 2 of them decided by 1 point or less. So, 1 or 2 of them games goes the right way. I mean, they had a tough start to the year. They lost to, I believe, Tennessee State. Not Tennessee State, Tennessee University. If you remember that Labor
Yeah,
Day, it was that Labor
right.
Day game. That
Yeah,
was
that
a
was that
tough loss.
crazy double OT game. Yeah, they should have won that game. They played Miami close, if I recall. Yeah, they had a lot of close games last year.
Yeah, and
And
that rushing attack's always interesting. With
yeah,
they got a new quarterback coming back and Taquan Marshall. Defensively they need to improve a little bit, but I think they're a team that they bring in a guy named Nate Woody from App State who did a great job there for a couple years over in Boone. So I think they're a team that I think you always got to look out for. You're right; they were a team that should have made a bowl last year that didn't. I really like this group as well. They were a team that I was going to try to sneak in. I think we all agree, though, Clemson will win this division, this conference, and probably win the entire thing or be right there in the Final Four. But keep your eye on Florida State. They're going to have some unfinished business. Keep your eye on Pittsburgh as well. If they could just improve that pass defense a little bit, they're a good football team. Let's go to the AAC, a conference near and dear to my heart. Always enjoy the AAC. And, as far as the favorite, I think people will anoint and say it's UCF. But Brinks, I got to tell you, and I think you and I talked about this. I wonder about this team. I mean, obviously you have so much pressure after last year. They expect you to be good, but you have a new coach. Scott Frost was huge for that program. You have a team that lost a lot of talent on defense. Obviously, guys like Shaquille Griffin and Mike Hughes. That's a lot of talent to replace. And will Heupel come in and maybe mess up Mackenzie Milton a little bit, maybe install that new offense? Will Randy Shannon be able to handle this defense? They're installing a totally new defensive game plan. I kind of wonder a little bit about that. I think UCF's obviously very good, but there's some other teams in this conference that I have my eye on. Are you concerned about UCF?
yeah, yes and no. I mean, I think Heupel is a lot like Frost in terms of the system, so I don't think there'll be that much of an adjustment there. Obviously they lost a lot of talent, and they had some really, really good players on that defense. You mentioned Griffin as one. So I don't think they're going to go undefeated again. But I think they're going to be up there, challenging for for the conference for sure. I don't see them falling off that much.
Yeah, they got a tough game against Pittsburgh, but it's at home. They do got to go to North Carolina. But other than that, I mean, they should be able to kind of, I don't know if they only have 3 losses this year, but I think they're probably a 10-win team, I would think. I got to tell you, though, I've talked to you. I like this Houston team. I think coming in with the new offensive coordinator in Kendall Briles, I think he's huge for De'Aaron King this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they could hang around in the AAC West. Ed Oliver, they got some real nice transfers coming in as well. I'm looking forward to Houston a little bit. I think with them, they expect to win now. You're going to find out right away. They got to play Arizona and Texas Tech right out of the gate. Brinks, what are your thoughts? Give me kind of a team you're looking at in the AAC, maybe off the beaten path.
I mean, I agree with you. We spoke about Houston a few weeks ago. I really like the quarterback. I think he's very similar to Greg Ward. He took over last year. He was just a sophomore. When he took over, he really kickstarted the offense. So, coming into this year, and also let's not forget Houston, was dealing with all the terrible aftermath of the hurricane last year. So, and they had, Major Applewhite in his first year. So I think, with the second year, with a bunch of good transfers coming in there, the quarterback position is solidified. I definitely see them doing a lot better than they did last year, which was 7-5. So I would agree with you on Houston for sure. Navy's a good team too. I like Malcolm Perry, the quarterback. He was really running that system good. At the end of the year, they had a lot of injuries last year. They also do lose a bunch of players there. I think they only have 4 starters on offense and 5 on defense coming back. But I'm always, Navy's a good team. So I think there's someone to look out for in that conference.
Yeah, I'm always a big fan of the Naval Academy. I think Niumatalolo is one of the best coaches in the country. I think he's a true embodiment of what a football coach is, and I give him respect for just not up and leaving to go to a better job. He's done a nice job at the Naval Academy. And you mentioned Perry. I think it's a great point by you. The problem I have with Perry is he is very undersized. I worry about his ability to stay healthy. But you also mentioned the losses last year, particularly on defense. I mean, when you have a team like Navy, you lose guys like DJ Palmore, Tyrus Wooten, Micah Thomas. That's a lot of guys. And those are captains. Those are leaders on defense that you're going to lose there. That's a big concern on a defense that, look, was good. They weren't great. I think they take a little step back. I think Navy is going to be obviously a great over team. That's one thing they were. They always are. I think you're going to see a lot of, 38, 31, 41, 35 type of games. They're good offensively. They're always hard to deal with that option. The question is, can they get any stops this year on defense? That's going to be kind of the big question. But I always like the Naval Academy. They're always interesting. House Houston's D this year says Troy V. I think their D is going to be really good. Ed Oliver's one of the best defensive players in the country. And what they went out and did was they replaced some of their losses, particularly in the secondary, with transfers, guys from Notre Dame and places like that. I think their D is going to be good. I think it's going to be just fine. And their D last year was good. They just need to get some stops through the air. Let's kind of wrap up the AAC. I think SMU obviously have major problems on defense. Tulane will be improved on offense, but they have some problems defensively. Tulsa in the same kind of realm there. This is a great over conference. I don't think we need to explain that too much, Brinks. There's plenty of overs to go around in this one. One of my favorite things to bet is an AAC over.
Yeah, should be plenty of points in these conference games this year. I would definitely agree with that. I like Tulane, but they got a really tough schedule this year. But I do like what Willie Fritz is doing over there. He's slowly making improvements. They played a lot better last year. They lost some tight games. They were a lot more competitive in some of those games. So again, they got a tough schedule going forward this year. So
yeah, Brinks, while we're on the AC, I did want to bring up I have to do a spot this year. I'm doing a spot this year with East Carolina's college radio network, and I have to. I'm sure they're going to ask me week to week about the Pirates, and I'm a bit concerned because this is going to be a bad football team. I don't know what I'm going to say about that group all year. They're one of the worst teams in college football. But also, look out for my Temple Owls. I've talked about them. I think they're going to be a really solid team with a strong quarterback this year. Brinks, let's keep it moving. Big 12. I hate this conference. I've made that clear to a lot of people. I think it's one of the worst conferences in football. I think there's very little talent that comes out of it, and it's really just a bunch of guys throwing the football around that don't have any interest in defense. Oklahoma's the favorite, obviously with Kyler Murray and Rodney Anderson and CeeDee Lamb. But question for them is, can they get some stops? I don't know if they can. And I wonder about Murray. I wonder why he's doing this exactly. Why is he playing football? You've made $4 million already to go play baseball. Why not take the year off, make sure you stay healthy? Is Oklahoma a team that you think's the favorite in this conference?
Yeah, I don't see how you could say they're not. They're defending champ. What have they won this conference? 2 years in a row now, 3 years. I lose track, but either way, they're perennial power. Obviously the big loss is Mayfield. So what kind of transition or what kind of drop off, if any, is there going to be with Murray? I do agree with you. He's an absolute fool for even playing football. Well, let's not forget, he's a young kid, probably enjoys being in college, and he's got a pocket full of money. So, think about it. If you had $4 million and you can go hang out in college and be the start quarterback of Oklahoma, that's not a bad gig. But yeah, Oklahoma's there. Obviously, we'll see, a lot of people like Texas to improve this year with Tom Herman in his second year. They had a lot of close losses last year. And also they had some injuries and they were flip-flopping the quarterbacks and everything. He's still not really set, although it sounds like he's going to go with Ellinger at quarterback, but that has not been announced yet. They opened the season last year with they got upset versus Maryland. I'm sure we'll touch on them later. But Texas is kind of the upstart team. If I was going to take someone from the back of the pack in this conference, I would say West Virginia. You got Will Greer at quarterback. I mean, I've never really loved him, but I mean, he can do the job. I think. You got Stills. You got some athletes out there. But West Virginia would be the team. I mean, they've gotten absolutely pasted by Oklahoma. I think since they've joined this conference, I don't think they've beaten them. I know they got crushed the past 2 years. And they do get Oklahoma at home to close out the season. That's like a Friday night, Thanksgiving weekend game. That could be. West Virginia is a tough place to play in those night games and that type of situation. They used to play Pitt in the backyard brawl that weekend. It's a shame they don't play that game anymore. But that's a tough spot right there for Oklahoma. So they get that game at home. They get TCU at home. The tough road game is at Texas. Oklahoma State's supposed to be down. So, West Virginia, I think, is a good back of the pack team if I was going to pick one from there in this conference.
Yeah, I mean, you look at offensively, I mean, they're really good. I mean, Gary Jennings is a terrific receiver. Greer's a Heisman candidate. I think he's going to have a big-time year. The only problem you're going to have with West Virginia is, listen, I think we're all very well aware they can't get any stops, but like we've talked about, neither can any team in this conference. I think Texas has a leg up just because you look at what they did last year. I mean, this team only gave up 21 points a game. And that's really unbelievable in the Big 12. Can you get to consistency at quarterback for Herman's team? That's the big question. They get a lot of their early games at home, which is obviously big. You do got to go to Oklahoma. You got to go to Oak State. You got to go to some different teams. But a lot of these good games and tough games are at home. I've discussed with you, Brinks, and I know you kind of laughed at me, but I think Baylor is going to be one of the more improved football teams in America. This team only won one game last year. I think they're going to make a huge stride forward. Do I think they're going to win 9 or 10 games? No, but I think they can win 6 or 7 games. I really believe that. I think early on they have a favorable schedule. I don't think it's out of the question that they can go 4-0. Look, they're going to lose to Oklahoma and Texas and West Virginia, but I think they're going to get wins at Kansas, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. I think they can go bowling. I know people think I'm crazy, but I think offensively they have a really really solid football team. I think they're going to improve on the defensive end as well. It's really just me maybe overreacting a bit, but I think Baylor's going to improve significantly from where they were last year. But I agree with your point on West Virginia. I think Texas is right there. I'm not ready to anoint Oklahoma. I think Kyler Murray is foolish. I think he's an absolute fool for doing this. Football is dangerous. One wrong move and his career is over, and he's going to be on the sidelines with the rest of us. I don't think it's a good idea. But we'll move on. I think, Brinks, you make the point, though. Oklahoma would probably be your favorite. It's got to be the West Virginia looking forward as we look at the rest of the group. Big Ten is up next. And look, I mean, before maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, we would probably say the favorite's Ohio State here, but maybe not so much anymore with the Urban Meyer situation. Even maybe without Urban Meyer, people think that Ohio State's the best team. But for me, it's Michigan. I think Michigan is finally going to get over the hump and win this conference. I'm not going to go into why I like them. I've done that time and time again. I think it's put up or shut up time here, Brinks, for Harbaugh.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on them this year. As far as Urban Meyer, I mean, this is what I think about it. Let's forget about how you judge the situation. I think at worst he's going to get a slap on the wrist, and I'll tell you why. Because when you are at a big time school like Ohio State, Oklahoma, Alabama, that football program is king. There's nothing more important to that program to those people than that football program. And I mean, he cut, whatever you want to say he did. He covered up for the coach. He lied. He didn't hit anyone. He didn't lay his hand on anyone. Listen, I'm not making excuses for the guy. I'm just saying he's going to be the head coach there. People that think he's not, I think they're crazy. I really do. I think it's delusional. I think at worst he gets slap on the wrist, few game suspension. Who knows? Maybe they take some money out of his contract or whatever. But as long as he's beating Michigan, there's no way he's leaving that school. So, listen. We said Michigan. Obviously, they have a ton of talent coming back. Huge year for Harbaugh. A lot of pressure on him. It looks like it could come down to that Ohio State-Michigan game. So that's what I would say as far as that part of the conference at least.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be that game, and I think we all know that. I think you make the point of Harbaugh or Meyer. I think you're right. I do. I want to say that I think they'll make the right decision and move on, but you're right. He didn't do anything to hurt anyone. He didn't hit anybody. He didn't, do anything along those lines. So, yeah, I think you might be right. As far as Michigan, yeah, they're going to have to go and they're going to have to win. Luckily, the game's at the Big House this year. So that's something that they can it's in Columbus. I'm sorry. So that's obviously a game Michigan's going to have to go on the road and win. Seems like they play every game at home in this series, Brinks. It seems like every year they get that game in Ohio State. But you look at the rest of the conference, obviously Penn State is a team that I think people think is a top 15 team. I don't know that I see it. I just think they lost way too much. You lose Joe Moorhead, who was a big part of that team last year on the offensive side. Defensively, you lose all sorts of talent. You lose Mike Gesicki on offense as well. You lose Saquon Barkley. You lose Deshaun Hamilton. There's just a lot of talent to lose. And, do I think they'll be relevant? Sure, I do. But to say they're going to be what they were last year or even the year before, I think it's a bit of a stretch. I don't think they're a top 15 team and wouldn't be surprised by the end of the year to see them fall out of that. Iowa will be interesting. They have an easy schedule, so they'll obviously be relevant in that joke of a Big Ten West. Nebraska coming in, new coach, but I think it'll take some time before he gets his guys in there. People are talking about Wisconsin. I think they're always a team in the Big Ten West to keep your eye on. They also lost a lot on defense, but this team always seems to be relevant towards the end. They're just that slow, grinded out offense that doesn't have a ton of possessions and makes them worth it. John Taylor's a great running back. Give me a team kind of in the lower rungs. Are you looking at Wisconsin? Do you think Jeff Brom and the Boilermakers could do something? What about Northwestern with Clayton Thorson?
If I was going to take someone from the back of the pack, and I mean it's really not that far back, I'd say from the middle of the pack, I would look at Michigan State. They got a lot of talent coming back on that team. They got the quarterback, they got the running back, L.J. Scott, who I like. He's got almost all his starters back, and they were 10-3 last year. So I would look. Michigan State would be a team, but the problem is they're in the wrong side of the conference. They're going up against Ohio State and Michigan. That's why I hate when these conferences, when they split them into these divisions. I mean, because it's just like the SEC. You have half of the conference that's really, powerful, and the other half is Wisconsin and basically Iowa and everyone else. So, it's a tough draw for Michigan State, but that would be a team I like. A team I actually did like, not to win this conference, obviously, but I thought they were a team that in the right spot on the right Saturday could do something this year, like upset someone and kind of throw the conference out of whack. It was Maryland. But obviously they're dealing with their own off-the-field stuff right now with the coach being put on leave. I really liked them bringing in, Matt Canada as the offensive coordinator there. Those two quarterbacks they had were really, really good. They both got hurt early in the year last year. But it's hard to judge Maryland now, because of what happened with Durkin. I think that in that situation, he's gone. There's no way if you're 4-8 and you have these things come out about your program, even if some of it's not true or is true or whatever, there's so much money in the line, with the lawsuit that's probably coming with that kid that tragically died. DJ Durkin's not going to coach his team ever again. So, that's a tough situation going on in Maryland over there.
Yeah, I mean, the kid died due to it. I mean, that's something you're going to have lawsuits out of your ass. Yeah, that's a sad story down there. As far as Michigan State, I think that's an interesting point by you because you look at this schedule. You get Michigan State and Ohio State at home. You bring back, I think, an exceptional secondary. Their secondary is really impressive. I just need LJ Scott to have a good year because last year I think he tailed off a little bit. The work he had some, just kind of had to do everything on his own. They're a real interesting team. I think if they can, you kind of get going a little bit. They have some favorable schedule spots. For me, I think it's an interesting conference. It's obviously always very low scoring, as we know. There are some bad teams in this conference, i.e., your Minnesotas, your Rutgers, teams like that. But there's plenty of talent, as always. Watch out for that Purdue group as well. They bring back some talent as well. I'll quickly discuss Conference USA. We talked about Florida Atlantic, you and I. They're your favorite. They're going to be your favorite. The only question mark I have with FAU is DeAndre Johnson coming over from the Florida State to then the EMCC down in junior college, then to Florida Atlantic. Had a blood clot last year. It's been a long road for DeAndre Johnson. Is he ready to handle that and get through that long road, finally get to the promised land? Is he ready to do that? Can he stay healthy? But other than that, this is a really good football team with a lot of talent on it. Brinks, you have to agree, FAU is the big time have to be played because, in past years, La Tech's always good. West Kentucky, they've kind of fell off a little bit. I think MTSU will hang around, but, FAU looks to cruise in this conference.
Yeah, I mean, they're clearly the class of this conference right now. Even if Johnson isn't, if he's not the guy, they still have the other kid, the transfer from Oklahoma, to play quarterback too. So there's a couple of different options there, and I think they're still fighting it out for the job actually. So I don't think they've named the starter yet. But they're clearly the class of this conference, I would say, clearly.
I would say one team to look out for, North Texas. They're playing with some revenge last year. They were absolutely crushed by FAU. They gave up 69 points in that game. North Texas brings back Mason Fine at quarterback. They bring back their leading receiver, Michael Lawrence. And they have a defense that I think can only go up. This team gave up 40 points or more 6 times last year. But I would expect early on, you should be able to beat SMU. You get a Patsy and Incarnate Word. You're going to be able to see what we're going to have quickly. Arkansas is a nice test for them. They probably won't win that game, but I think North Texas is going to be a team that will hang around all year. I think getting to a bowl game is obviously something they expected at this point, but I think they give a better game to FAU this year after last year. That was a tough loss and a tough game for Mason Fine and crew. Look out for that team. But you have a lot of real bad teams as well, though. I mean, UAB is poor. Obviously, Rice, UTEP, UTSA will probably miss out on a bowl game this year. There's some real bad teams in the Conference USA. FAU should run away with this conference. Brinks at the end of the day. Great defense. Let me ask you this real quick. Do you think Lane Kiffin moves on from there after this year?
I'd be shocked if he's back at Florida Atlantic next year.
Yeah, I think he's done enough to kind of move on. Quickly here, I want to just get a price on this conference. It's probably quite high. I don't even think some of the websites don't even have it out yet. Let's move to the. I don't think we'll go over every conference. Obviously, that would take a while. Let's hit maybe the Pac-12 and then the SEC. And then we'll maybe just kind of get some final thoughts, and I'll throw out a couple random teams to look out for. Pac-12 Brinks. Oregon obviously will be much improved. They get their quarterback back with him in the lineup. They only will go up. They averaged 52 points a game with him in the lineup last year. But Washington is the favorite. You look at the lines here. Washington plus 137, USC at 4-1, Stanford 5-1, Oregon 7-1. Is Washington the favorite to you? Do you see anyone that you're concerned with here other than Washington?
Yeah, I mean, on paper they're the favorite. You know, Washington's a funny team because they on the futures market they got absolutely slammed because they opened them up at like I think it was 40 to 1 or 50 to 1, some crazy price, and that price is wrong. It was wrong, and it's been corrected since. It's come down a lot, but I don't think Washington's a walkthrough to win this conference by any respect. I mean, Stanford's a damn good football team. If they could keep Bryce Love healthy, was obviously a huge factor there. They're going to get better quarterback play this year. Kid last year was a disaster till they ended up switching over to Costello. So I mean, I like Stanford. They're kind of like I guess second or third choice on paper. I mean, everyone's just completely overlooking USC. When's the last time that's happened in that? At least when you look at it from the Pac-12 perspective, that USC is just completely looked over. I mean, I know they have a ton of guys that they're replacing, but I'm always careful to just say like, oh, this team. When you're talking about a big time program, if you're talking about FIU or Tulane, some shitty program, then and they have to replace a lot of guys. That's one thing. But when you're talking about a blue chip program like USC, even if those guys got to replace, they have top recruits coming in, or they have guys. They had a lot of guys hurt last year too. Guys behind them, got experience. So I wouldn't just completely discount USC. They're a pretty good football. They're going to have talent on that team.
Oh, yeah, they're always going to bring in talent. I mean, they're getting a great talent pool out there in California, as we know. I don't think you should either discount the UCLA Bruins either. Chip Kelly makes them very good, as we know. I think they have a pretty good offense coming back as well. Devin Modster is a good quarterback. They need to find a way to run the football, though. They were one of the worst rush offenses in America last year, and they were also one of the worst rush defenses. They need to find a way to not only run the football, but stop the run as well. I think Washington's the best team. I know you are a little, and they can be irritating. I mean, Jake Browning never seems able to win the big game. Last chance here. You're going to find out a lot right away against Auburn. I think they have a leg up in that football game, though. I think defensively they're really good. I think they have one of the best secondaries in the country, does Washington. They have a schedule that's, pretty easy, let's say. You get Stanford at home. You get some of the tougher games in the conference at home. But you're right with USC. You can't ever overlook the Trojans. But I'm not a Clay Helton guy. I wonder about him. And Stanford, I wonder about that defense. You and I talked about it. There's no pass rusher that can disrupt, give that secondary some space every once in a while. You lose a lot in that secondary as it is. I think that secondary struggles a little bit, and I think that defense struggles. Obviously, we're going to want to bet against Oregon State. You're going to want to bet against, the Arizona State Sun Devils. But you and I, Brinks, I think you were the one that also said, I don't hate that Herm Edwards signing as a coach. I think he's a decent mentor, and I think that's what you're going to need out there to get that culture a little bit different. I don't know how much he'll do on the field, but I think from a culture perspective, he's not a bad hire, Brinks.
I listen. They got killed for hiring him, and I know he made some kind of strange statements after he was hired that went all over social media and everything. And I like Herm because Herm he's going to tell you how it is. I think he's the kind of guy that when he gets out there and he recruits and he gets in front of some kid's family. I think he can be very, the mother is going to say, listen, I want my kid to go, play for this guy.
Great point.
So I think he could be a very good ambassador to the program. I can see him screwing game management up and things like that. And listen, it's year one for him. There are quite a bit of expectations at Arizona State. I think they kind of expect that program to be better than what it really can as far as consistently. I think they're the kind of team that can pop up every 2 or 3 years and be someone in the national picture. But I don't think that program is ever going to consistently be there. So, but I do like the hire. I agree with you.
Yeah, I think they have a bear of a schedule. I mean, you look at the first 3 games. I mean, you should be able to beat UTSA, but I mean, Michigan State, San Diego State, and then Washington. That's a tough start to the season. One other team, obviously Arizona. People love Khalil Tate. I think he's going to be among the best players in the country. So dynamic. Kevin Sumlin's going to have to obviously fix that defense a little bit, but I think Noel Mazzoni's a great guy to have to deal with if you're Khalil Tate. He's made some good quarterbacks into high-level players, so look out for them. Pac-12, to me, it's Washington. Brink says look out a little bit for USC. I also will say look out for Oregon. I think they're a team that's going to score a lot of points, as always. I think their defense has improved also. Jim Leavitt has done a great job there. I mean, you look at from the year before, 2 years ago to last year, they made a huge jump defensively. So obviously keep your eye on the Ducks up in Autzen. I actually laid the number with them in the first week against the Bowling Green Falcons. I laid 27.5. It's up to 30-31. So some good value there on that line. Let's get to the – yes,
Jeff,
sir.
one thing real quick that you said I want to counterpoint to. Be careful betting against Oregon State in conference. In conference, be careful.
Interesting. Can you elaborate on that? Because I don't know.
There were some sneaky spots last year.
Okay.
You see, the thing is, whenever a team plays Oregon State, it could almost always they're coming off a big game or looking ahead to a big game. They're the flat spot on everyone's schedule.
Good point.
So, it's like, people say, whoever it is, when Ohio State comes in, they're going to get the best shot from everyone. It's the complete opposite with Oregon State. Whenever teams play them, they get the worst shot from everyone. They get the teams that's coming in there, just thinking they're going to win the game. I mean, I remember last year, I had a huge play on them when they played Stanford. They were like a 21-point favorite on a Thursday or Friday night. They lost by 1 point. So, you can find some good spots with Oregon State from an ATS perspective.
I think also you always got to point out as well, they're always getting a ton of points. And they're getting touchdowns. They're getting 5 touchdowns. So, yeah, I mean, you make some good points there, especially with, college kids are always going to look down on some of these games. It's a Thursday night against Oregon State. I'm not going to get up for it. I always look at them, and again, that's a great point by you. I just kind of looked at them from a talent perspective. It's hard to like them. They're a bad football team, but you make a good point there. Let me ask you, we got a guy in the chat saying that he took them plus 38 in the first game. What are you thinking on that?
They're playing Ohio State.
That's not a bad play, actually.
No, it's not. Listen, I think we said this before when you were on with me. If you blindly take the 31-point dogs or more the past few years, you're doing really good. To just blindly bet them. So
here's when I lay big numbers. I'm going to lay big numbers like in that Oregon game where you're facing a much more subpar team. You're facing the MAC, Sun Belt, teams like that, Conference USA. Those are the games where I'll lay big points. When I get a Power 5 blue blood against a Bowling Green, a Miami, Ohio, stuff like that. But against an Oregon State who still gets decent level people, I don't think that's a bad play, especially with all the things going on at Ohio State. That could be a 41-10 type of game, and you're going to get within the number. So interesting point there, Blaze Edwards on the chat. Let's go into the SEC, but great info there, Brinks. Good stuff on a team to look out for in certain situations. Let's go to the SEC, everybody's favorite conference. I don't seem to ever understand that. And I think it's a shit conference to watch. And I actually have some interesting points on this conference. We'll obviously start with the big boys, Alabama. We know they're great. We know Tua is great. We know their running backs are good. They do lose a lot in the secondary and on defense, but we know they'll realign and be just fine. I actually spoke with a guy recently, Brinks, that says they're going to lose the first game of the season against Louisville. First of all, what are your thoughts on that comment? And B, what do you think about Alabama?
What's that guy smoking?
Not sure.
No shot. No shot to lose versus Louisville. What was your other question?
Do you think they're, do you look at this team and say, I think they're way better than Georgia. I think they're better than Clemson. Because I got to tell you, I think they're right there. But I don't look at this Alabama team and see the best team in the country. I don't.
No, I mean, when they're playing on a neutral field versus Georgia versus Clemson, they're not a big favorite right now, according to the power rankings. Obviously that could change. They're going to get better. You see the thing with Alabama, the way their schedule is, they don't face. It's like if they had a challenge early in the year, that's the time to get to a team like them. With all these new players that they're working in, they're not challenged early in the year. Louisville's a joke. Arkansas State's a joke. At Ole Miss, okay, you're gonna get their best punch, but it's still not enough. Then you got A&M, Louisiana. Their toughest game is going to be at LSU. As far as their first toughest game, the next one would be obviously Auburn at the end of the year. So, but what I'm saying is they're going to have all these games to get this team fine-tuned. It's sort of like, when your best shot sometimes to get to a starting pitcher is to get him in the first inning. And no one's getting this shit. They don't have a team that could get to them early in the year. So, listen, Alabama's Alabama. They're going to be right there.
I like Georgia, as always. I think Georgia tasted it last year. They were right there. I think they come back this year. I really love their offense with Fromm and Swift and Terry Godwin at receiver. I think on defense, they're very strong, as always. They have, obviously the secondary is strong up front with Ledbetter and Clark. I like this team a lot, Georgia. But I'll tell you what, let's kind of look at maybe some teams off the beaten path. I talked to you about South Carolina. I think this Gamecock team is going to be a team that can bother people this year. I look at their quarterback, Jake Bentley, like him a lot. I think Deebo Samuel is one of the better position players in America. He was injured last year, but before that, I think he had 2 kick returns. He was an electric player. I like the Gamecocks. Muschamp always a good defense. Look out for them. They don't play Alabama. They get Georgia at home, so maybe they have some favorable scheduling spots there. Brinks, what are you thinking about maybe an off the beaten path team? Could it be Arkansas? Could it be Ole Miss? Texas A&M. I like Mississippi State. I've talked to you about them. I think they could be a team that really could be a real wild card in the SEC. I don't think it's out of the question that if they get going, they could be really effective. That offense with Moorhead now is going to be dynamic. I think defensively they're underrated. And we saw a couple of years ago with Dak Prescott, they were a high-level football team. Nick Fitzgerald's really good.
I agree with you. I love the signing of, bringing in Moorhead. And on the flip side of that, you had mentioned it earlier. I think Penn State's really going to miss Moorhead. So I think he's a good fit there. I think Mississippi State's a damn good football team. I'll tell you what, this play it's going to be boom or bust, and I'd say likely bust. But the team that everyone is just walking over, everyone's just assuming the coach is going to get fired at the end of this year, is the LSU Tigers. And I don't know. I see when everyone is just going one way against you. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying they're going to win the conference, maybe they have a big upset. Maybe they beat Alabama. He's going to need a game like that to keep his job, I think. The expectations are just insane down there. And, they bring in a bunch of new players. They got a new quarterback. It's year 3. They want to see something. There was the changeover with Canada at the offensive coordinator position. So, I mean, they have a huge game right off the bat versus Miami in a neutral field. So, and the thing with LSU is the schedule. It's just unfair. You have Miami, and you got a cupcake Southeast Louisiana at Auburn. Then you get La Tech, Ole Miss. Then you go to Florida, and then you have Georgia right after that. So, and then Alabama later in the year, and then at A&M. So, not an easy schedule, but I don't know. Whenever someone just completely writes off a school like that, and it's a school that's going to have talent, I take note of it. So, LSU would be someone I'd keep an eye on.
Well, I brings to a mighty good Ed Orgeron impression. If you want to hear it, maybe I can give my opinion with the impression. You want to hear it?
What was that?
I do a really good Ed Orgeron impression. Do you want to hear it?
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Let me hear.
Brinks, we're excited here down here at LSU. We're excited. We got a new real pro-style offense. We got a lot of pepper in the gumbo down here, and we before the game we're gonna have a couple of chicken on the stick. We're really excited down here at LSU. I appreciate the kind words. I hope I don't get fired, but I didn't work out in USC because I'm not a California boy, but we're down here in deep South LSU. We like a little pep in the gumbo, if you know what I mean. Go Tigers. So there's
got
the
chicken on the stick in there. I like that.
Yes, that's Ed Orgeron's favorite food, as they say. But yeah, listen, for me, obviously Alabama will be your top pick, or Georgia, but keep your eye on Mississippi State. I really like this football team. Do I think they can win this conference? At 12-1, I don't think it's out of the question. It probably won't happen, but if you want to take a little flyer on it, I don't think this is a team that won't not sniff the top 15 this year. I think they're that good. Brinks, let's look to wrap it up. Obviously, we can't go through every team. We went through a lot of them here as far as conferences are concerned. Do me a favor, quickly, if you can. Give me your Final Four. Do you have a Final Four?
What I hate about these? It's like, and it's like this. It's like this almost every year. You look at these teams, and it's almost impossible. It's almost inconceivable right now to think that you're not going to get a combination of Alabama, Clemson, throw in a Georgia, an Ohio State, a Washington, those 5 teams. But with that being said, I think there's going to be a wild card in there. Who that team is, I really couldn't tell you right now. But that's what it's like. But if you look back over since they've started the playoffs, almost every year there's a wild card in there, and almost every year it's you were sitting here saying the same thing. It's like you have 5 teams or 6 teams, and you're like, I would be completely shocked if 4 of those 6 are not in there. But then again, we're seeing a team sneak up and have a big year. So I mean, I would go with Alabama. I'd still go with Ohio State. I would say, if you're going to take a real oddball team, Stanford. That would be my long shot. Stanford, obviously Clemson. Some combination, something like that.
Interesting. I've talked about it. I think Clemson will win the entire thing. I think Washington will make the Final Four. I think Michigan's going to make the Final Four. I think obviously Clemson, and I think Georgia's going to get in there. Also, keep in mind, random little piece of info here. Liberty makes their move into the FBS. Turner Gill's program coming in. They beat Baylor last year, if you remember, Brinks, which I guess isn't that big a deal, but for Baylor it was. They have the best name for a player in America, Brinks. Liberty's quarterback's name is Buckshot Calvert. Buckshot will be coming in and looking to do some things in the independent area. So look out for Liberty as they make their move in.
You want another piece of random information about that team?
Yes. What do you got?
And I can't remember the last. Obviously, they're independent, so I guess they had some issues filling up the schedule. I'm trying to find their schedule. They play, I think, are you looking at their schedule? I believe it's New Mexico State twice in the same year.
Oh, yeah, they play them. That's true. I do see that.
When is the last time you saw a college football team with the same team on their schedule? You know, maybe they could meet, in a championship game for the conference. But I can't ever remember seeing, maybe back, when they had leather helmets and things like that. You'd play teams twice in a year. So little nugget there.
I'll also give you one other nugget. Their outside linebacker is Jay Ajayi's brother. So,
really?
Yes, Solomon Ajayi. So there you go. There you have it. College football breakdown. Look, as you know, I'll be on various other platforms giving more breakdowns. I'll be at IFBC in a few weeks out in Vegas. We'll be speaking college football. Me and Joe Lisi, along with Drew Martin, and I believe maybe some others as well. So look forward to that if you're going to be out in Vegas for IFBC. As always, give my channel a like, a subscription, and comment if you listen after the fact. Brinks, thanks for coming on, man. I'm sure I'll speak to you a lot more as the season goes on. Good luck with everything. And obviously, you gave us the Cardinals early on here. We'll look forward to hopefully seeing that one cash, and you can cash in for your people as well. So good luck, Arizona in the red zone. So hopefully they can get you some points. Thanks for coming on, Brinks. I appreciate it.
Anytime, Jeff. Always a pleasure to talk football with you.
As always, one more thing. If you're in the market to play fantasy football, any kind of fantasy, check out FanDuel.com/BMOC. Get yourself $20 when you sign up by clicking on my link and joining. You have to be a new user, but come play fantasy football if you never tried it. DFS is obviously one of the next big things. So make sure you check out FanDuel.com/BMOC. Thanks again to Mamba Brinks for coming on. I'll put his Twitter name out there. Give him a follow. Get in touch with him on his packages. He does a nice job in NFL, college, all sorts of sports. So check him out. I'm the big man on campus. This is the college football preview. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.